What's the first thing you would do if you were an all-powerful ruler of an empire? Probably not what this guy did. Welcome to my channel. Today we are in Turkey, and this is Topkapi Palace Museum. We'll start off our tour with an aerial drone shot of Istanbul. We're flying towards the historic peninsula, and in the distance, you can see the Bosphorus. The palace we're heading towards was once the seat of one of history's most powerful empires, the Ottoman Empire. It took 350 years to complete and served as the home for 15 sultans. Within its walls are priceless treasures, secret chambers and stories of power, intrigue, and legacy. The question is, what secrets does Topkapi Palace still hold today? The Ottoman Empire was founded in 27th century Turkey and lasted for over 600 years. During this time, the empire grew to become one of the largest and most powerful in the world. But how did they do it? Well, it started with one man, Osman Bey. He was the leader of a small tribe of Turkish warriors who lived in the forests near Istanbul. Osman Bey and his followers were skilled fighters, and over time they began to raid the nearby towns and villages. As the raids continued, Osman Bey's reputation grew, and soon he had an army of several thousand men. With this army, he was able to conquer the surrounding areas and establish the Ottoman Empire. The empire's success continued into the 15th century, when the Ottomans captured Constantinople. This victory made the Ottomans one of the most powerful empires in the world. Under the rule of Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire reached its peak during the 16th and 17th centuries. His reign was marked by military victories, territorial expansion, and cultural achievements. However, as the years went on, the empire began to decline. By the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire was weak and vulnerable. It was at this time that the British and French began to take an interest in the empire. They saw an opportunity to take control of the Ottomans and their valuable resources. In 1922, the last Ottoman Sultan was forced to abdicate the throne, and the empire was dissolved. But before we move on, if you like what you're seeing so far, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when we release new videos. And now back to Topkapi Palace. The palace was built in the 15th century and was the home of the Ottoman sultans for over 400 years. The palace is a vast complex of courtyards, gardens, and buildings. It also includes a museum, which houses a collection of Ottoman art and artifacts. The palace was built during the reign of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. He chose this site for the palace because it was close to the Bosphorus and the city's main mosque. Construction began in 1460, and the palace was completed in 1478. The palace was designed to be the seat of the Ottoman government. It also served as the home of the Sultan and his court. One of the most interesting features of the palace is its secret passageways. These were used by the sultans and their wives to move around the palace without being seen. There are also a number of courtyards and gardens within the palace walls. These provided a place for the sultans to relax and enjoy the outdoors. Despite the palace's grandeur, life for the sultans wasn't always easy. The palace is located in Istanbul, Turkey. It was founded by Sultan Mehmed II the Conqueror in 1453, right after the conquest of Constantinople. The construction of the palace began in 1460, and it was completed in 1475 during the reign of Sultan Bayezid II. It was designed by Ottoman architects in a way that combined the best elements of Turkish, Islamic, and European architecture. Throughout its history, the palace housed 4 main courts that represented different aspects of the Ottoman government. These were the Palace Court, the Court of the Black Eunuchs, the Court of the White Eunuchs, and the Court of the Janissaries. Each court had its own administrative functions and personnel, but they all worked together to ensure the smooth functioning of the Ottoman state. In addition to its administrative functions, the palace was also the center of Ottoman political power. The Sultan's court was located here, and it was from this court that the sultans issued their decrees and laws. The palace was also home to the Sultan's treasury, which contained vast amounts of gold, silver, jewels, and other valuables. Some of these treasures are now on display at the Treasury Museum within the palace walls. Apart from being the seat of power, the palace was also a symbol of the Sultan's wealth and power. It featured stunning works of art and architecture that were meant to impress visitors and subjects alike. One of the most famous examples is the 98-meter long and 17-meter high Hall of Mirrors. which was used for official ceremonies and receptions. The palace remained the primary residence of the Ottoman sultans until the mid-19th century, when it was severely damaged by a fire. After the palace was repaired, it continued to be used as a royal residence until 1924, when it was opened to the public as a museum by order of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of modern Turkey. Today, visitors from all over the world come to explore the Topkapi Palace Museum and to learn about the fascinating history of the Ottoman Empire. The museum contains a vast array of artifacts from the Ottoman period, including weapons, jewelry, ceramics, carpets, and more. It is truly a treasure trove of history and a must-visit destination for anyone traveling to Istanbul. When the Ottoman Empire was at its peak, this palace was the seat of government and the home of the Sultan's court. It was built by the order of Sultan Mehmed I in 1638 and took 8 years to complete. The palace consists of 4 courtyards surrounded by gorgeous gardens and pavilions. The layout was designed to represent the empire's wealth and power, with each courtyard more impressive than the last. The architecture is a mixture of Ottoman, Islamic, and Byzantine influences and features many arches, domes, and fountains. Some of the highlights include the Gate of Salutation, which was designed to impress visitors as they approached the palace. The gate is flanked by 2 marble columns and decorated with intricate carvings. Then there's the Gate of Felicity, which is decorated with colorful tiles and serves as the main entrance to the palace. As we wander through the courtyards, we will see many examples of Islamic art and architecture, such as the beautiful fountains and the star-shaped pool. We will also see the influence of the natural environment, with the palace's many windows and balconies offering stunning views of the Bosphorus Strait and the Sea of Marmara. The palace is also home to a museum, which houses a vast collection of artifacts from the Ottoman Empire. Visitors can see the treasures of the sultans, such as their weapons, armor, and jewelry, as well as their opulent clothing and personal belongings. There are also exhibits on the history of the Ottoman Empire and its impact on world history. The palace consists of 4 main courtyards, and it took 750 builders and 3,000 artisans for years to complete. The construction began in 1460 and was finished in 1472 during the reign of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, the one who conquered Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and made it the capital of the Ottoman Empire. So let's take a walk and see what life was like inside the palace walls. Every morning when the sun would rise, the Sultan would wake up and immediately go to the bathroom to wash himself. He would have a designated bathroom with a special heated marble slab for his royal behind. Then he would get dressed in one of his many fine robes and jewels and be ready to rule the empire. His wife, the Sultan's wife, would wake up early as well and join him for breakfast. They would eat sweet dishes, such as rice pudding or cucumbers mixed with yogurt, as well as savory foods like grilled fish and lamb. After breakfast, the Sultan would go to the divan, which was the imperial council, where the important decisions for the empire were made. Here he would sit on his throne and listen to the viziers, or prime ministers, and other court officials argue about the best course of action for the empire. Sometimes he would participate in the discussions, but most of the time, he just listened. When the divan was finished, the Sultan would return to his chambers to rest. He would relax on a special pillow that was designed to support his body and keep him comfortable. His guards would stand watch outside his door, and if anyone was worthy, they would be granted an audience with the Sultan. Now, these guards weren't just any ordinary soldiers. They were hand-selected by the Sultan and had to prove themselves to be loyal and trustworthy. If they passed the test, they would be given a special uniform and be allowed to carry the Sultan's personal weapons. The first treasure we have to look at is the imperial treasury. This treasury is located behind one of the palace's mosques, and inside is some of the most valuable jewels and diamonds that have ever been discovered. The most famous item in the treasury is known as the Topkapi dagger. This dagger was actually a gift to Napoleon from the Ottoman Sultan, and it features a huge diamond-encrusted handle. But this isn't just any diamond. It's actually one of the largest diamonds in the world. It weighs 37 carats and is known as the spoonmaker's diamond. Legend has it that the diamond was actually stolen from a spoon. Imagine going to work one day and seeing a giant diamond growing out of your soup spoon. But the treasures don't stop there. The Ottomans were known for their incredible craftsmanship and detail to things like architecture, art, and even spoons. But what they lacked in size, they made up for in quality. This is an actual life-size recreation of the Prophet Muhammad. It's believed that this is one of the only remaining artifacts from the time of the Prophet, and it's one of the most sacred relics in Islam. It's believed that the original is kept in a vault in Medina, but this replica is over 1,000 years old and is one of the greatest treasures in Topkapi. We also have his cloak and his sword on display here in the museum. Now let's take a visual journey through some of the greatest treasures of the Ottoman Empire. All these artifacts are on display at the Topkapi Palace Museum. It was the home of the Ottoman sultans for over 400 years. It holds many secrets from the time when it was a bustling palace full of life to the tales of intrigue and betrayal that occurred within its walls. One of the most popular areas of the palace is the Harem, which is often referred to as the place where the sultans kept their women. However, this is not entirely accurate. While there were separate quarters for men and women in the harem, it was much more than just a place for the sultan's wives and concubines. In fact, it was also the political center of the empire. The women in the harem were not just there to bear children. They were also influential in court politics and often had the ear of the sultan. One of the most powerful women in the harem was the valid sultan, also known as the Queen Mother. She was the wife of the previous sultan and the mother of the current one, and she held considerable sway over her son, often acting as his advisor and even making decisions on his behalf. The story of how the valid sultan became the most powerful woman in the harem is a tale of intrigue and murder. When the sultan's wife gave birth to their son, she was immediately strangled to death by the sultan's mother, the valid sultan. Now you might be wondering why the sultan would allow his own mother to kill his wife. Well, it's all about power. The valid sultan was a shrewd politician, and she knew that if the new mother were to live, she would become the most powerful woman in the harem. By eliminating the young mother, the valid sultan ensured that she would be the one calling the shots. Another story that took place in the harem is that of a young girl who caught the eye of the sultan. The sultan was so enamored with her that he built her a special apartment right next to his own, so that he could be close to her. However, the girl's head soon turned, and she began to demand more from the sultan. She wanted to be the one and only woman in his life, and she was willing to do anything to make that happen. So she set her sights on the sultan's wife, the valid sultan, and began to plot her downfall. She spread rumors about the valid sultan to the sultan, claiming that she was having an affair with one of the courtiers. And when the sultan confronted his mother with these accusations, she was enraged. She ordered the girl to be thrown out of the palace, but it was too late. The damage was done, and the sultan never looked at his wife the same way again. The harem is a fascinating place, and the stories that have happened within its walls are truly captivating. These are the largest kitchens in the world from the Ottoman Empire, which at its peak fed thousands of people every day. We're going to explore the recipes, the spices, and the stories behind the incredible food that was served up in the Ottoman Empire. The kitchens were also used for displaying the vast wealth of the empire, and we'll see how the Chinese porcelain and the silverware collections were also put on show when the sultans were eating. The kitchens also had to feed the sultan's wife, his many concubines, and the courtiers who lived within the palace walls. And it's estimated that during the height of the Ottoman Empire, there were around 5,000 people living within the palace, all of whom had to be fed. The cooks would prepare the food in these enormous kitchens and then carry it through this huge serving hatch at the far end of the room. The hatch would then open up, and the food would be taken to the sultan's court, where it would be served on these beautiful plates and bowls made from Chinese porcelain. The Ottomans were obsessed with Chinese porcelain, and they would use it to display their wealth and power. They would often have whole rooms filled with nothing but Chinese porcelain, and this was also done to impress visiting dignitaries. The palace kitchens also contained some of the most valuable silverware in the world. The Ottomans were known to have some of the finest goldsmiths in the world working in their palaces. They would create incredible pieces of art out of silver and gold, and then they would use them to serve food. The palace is now a museum, but it's still possible to get a glimpse of what life was like in the Ottoman Empire. The kitchens are filled with all kinds of artifacts from that time period, including old pots and pans, as well as some of the actual dishes that were used to serve food. It's truly amazing to think about what life was like back in the day when these kitchens were in use. It must have been so exciting to come through this hatch and see all of the beautiful food laid out before you. And it must have been even more exciting to know that you were about to eat off of priceless pieces of Chinese porcelain. It contains many treasures from the Ottoman Empire, including beautiful gardens and amazing views. When you first walk into the palace, you'll be stunned by the beautiful courtyards. The courtyards are surrounded by fountains and statues, and they the perfect place to relax and take in the atmosphere. I love the way that the sunlight reflects off of the water and the flowers and trees are in bloom. It really feels like you've stepped back in time. But the gardens are not just beautiful, they're also symbolic. In Ottoman culture, the gardens represented paradise. The flowers and trees were carefully chosen to evoke the imagery of the Quran. For example, the tulip, which is a symbol of the Ottoman Empire, represents the love between the human and divine. The cypress trees represent the guardians of paradise, and the fountains represent the flowing water of the rivers in paradise. But the gardens and courtyards are not the only things that make Topkapi so special. The views are also amazing. From the palace walls, you can see the Bosphorus and the Golden Horn. The Bosphorus is the strait that connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara, and it was one of the most important trade routes in the world. The Golden Horn is a large inlet in Istanbul, and it was also an important center of trade and shipbuilding. To be honest, I'm not really a history buff, but even I could appreciate the beauty of these places. After the devastating fire of 1734, the Sultan's wife, Mehmed Sultan, who was in charge of the palace renovations, decided to move into a new palace that was built across the Bosporus Strait, the Dolmabahce Palace. This palace was more modern and had all the latest amenities such as central heating and a beautiful view of the sea. So why wouldn't she want to move there? The remaining sultans also preferred to live in Dolmabahce because Topkapi Palace was too big and it was difficult to guard. Also, most of the action in the empire was happening in the new capital of Istanbul. As the empire declined, the sultans preferred to live in a more modest way, and they saw Topkapi Palace as a burden. When the Ottoman Empire fell in 1922 and the Republic of Turkey was founded, Topkapi Palace was one of the buildings that was saved from demolition by the new Turkish government. They wanted to turn it into a museum to show off the country's rich history and culture. But before they could do that, they had to get rid of the thousands of people who were living in the palace illegally. These people had been squatting in the palace for years, and they had turned it into a slum. The Turkish government gave them two choices: either leave the palace or be arrested. Most of them chose to leave. After the palace was cleared out, it was finally opened to the public in 1923. Today, it is one of the most visited museums in Turkey, with over 3 million visitors every year. Now, after hundreds of years, it's a museum filled with treasures from the Ottoman past. But there's more to this place than just bricks and mortar. It's a window into a world that no longer exists, a way of understanding what life was like for the people who lived here all those years ago. It's also a bridge between two cultures, a symbol of the long and complicated relationship between East and West. When the Ottomans first took over Istanbul, they were seen as the barbarians from the East, a threat to the established order. But as they grew richer and more powerful, they became the new center of civilization. The Topkapi Palace was at the forefront of this cultural exchange, a place where different religions and ways of life came together. It was also a place of great wealth and power. For centuries, the Ottoman sultans were among the richest men in the world, and the Topkapi Palace was the center of their empire. It was here that they received ambassadors from other courts and made important decisions about trade and war. But the good times didn't last forever. As the empire grew weaker, the palace became a symbol of the Ottoman decline. In the end, it was seized by the British and used as a barracks for Turkish troops. Today, the Topkapi Palace is a museum open to the public. People come from all over the world to see the riches of the Ottoman Empire and learn about this important part of history. As you walk through the rooms of the palace, you can't help but feel a sense of wonder. The carpets are so thick and luxurious under your feet. The walls are covered in beautiful tiles, and the ceilings are decorated with intricate patterns. There are so many treasures to see, from the Sultan's throne to the famous diamond-studded dagger. But it's not just the luxury that's fascinating. It's also a chance to see how ordinary people lived, the kitchens. You can imagine the cooks preparing meals for the Sultan's court. In the stables, you can picture the horses being groomed before a ride. The Topkapi Palace is more than just a building. It is the heartbeat of an empire, a window into centuries of history, and a bridge between East and West. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. I hope you enjoyed learning about the secrets of the Ottoman Empire. If you want to learn more about this amazing place, be sure to visit the website below. Who knows? You might just discover something that even I didn't know. And remember, the Topkapi Palace Museum, where history lives.